Yay! We are live, and I am so happy to be here with you today. I have been traveling around, and it has been a very, very busy week, all very exciting stuff. But because of that, you know how you finally get to, well, for me, Wednesday, when I'm going to go live with all of you, and I think, whew, what just happened? We can all relate because our lives are so busy. And because they are so busy, that is precisely why it is so important that we have some time carved out, not only for ourselves, but to do a little bit of spiritual training, to do a little bit of soul work. That work that we do today is incredibly important for how we are going to live, number one, our time on earth, how we are going to think and process information in our busy lives, but then also how to keep the peace, that stability, that balance, that patience that we are going to need. We need to put in that training. That equipment, those tools are not going to be in our arsenal unless we do develop and start to put those pieces in the tool chest. If we don't have them, they're not going to be there, and we're all going to need them. So by the way, before we go get into our message today, which we're going to be talking about the book of Jonah and how it is never too late and that God is a God of second chances, and we all need to hear that. But first, I want to give a shout out to some of you that are with me right now. Genesis Studios, I think I saw you last week as well, and I'm so glad that you are here. AH178, I see you. I see that code name. What is your actual name? Aaron, Joe, Matthew, Frederick, Kyle, Lance, Nicola, Rita. So glad that you are all with me. So we're going to get into this. I'm going to pull up my message right now, and hopefully we won't have any technical difficulties. I know that sometimes during these YouTube videos, some of you have been telling me that sometimes either the audio goes out or the frame gets a little sketchy. Bear with me as we push through this kind of new terrain with YouTube videos, because they are going to start to change. And that's going to come. But what is most important for me is that all of you hear the message, that all of you get into the gym, even if that gym, that spiritual training gym that is, only has a few pieces of equipment. Because as we all know, anyone who is proficient in the gym, you know that you can literally do the best workout of your life with just body weight. So my point is that even if the audio isn't perfect, and even if the technical side isn't completely ironed out yet, it will be. The most important thing is that you get the word that is going to be delivered specifically for you, because there are no accidents. If you are here watching this video, you happen to be here connected with me for a reason. And they're all divinely inspired. I let God and the Holy Spirit lead me. So hopefully something that I say really speaks to you today. Anyway, welcome to Live Wednesday Wisdom from YouTube. I'm your host, Meisha Johnson, and today we are pulling a life principle from the book of Jonah. So today's message is called Never Too Late, the God of Second Chances. And if you are new to these chats, I'm going to be giving practical everyday advice with the scriptural foundation that, when implemented, will change your life. It's that simple. And I say when implemented on purpose, because yes, while it is good to listen to a message, that is certainly good, you also have to take what you learn and then implement it into your life. There was a time in my life when I was new to the faith walk. It was after I had my spiritual awakening in 2008, when I was listening and I was absorbing all this information, but I wasn't actually implementing it into my life yet. And when I did, when I began to take all that I had learned and all that I had ingested and brought in, when I started to implement that into my own life and into my mind, learning how to think about things and process things, even down to how to pray most effectively, how to walk with God most effectively, that's when I actually started to see my life change. That's when it wasn't so much transactional, but more transformational. So keep that in mind as you listen to what I'm about to tell you and how you can implement it into your own life. And that will build from there. So I call this spiritual training, as you know, and we are all in need of it. There is not one human being on the planet that can just overlook it, not care about it, although so many people do. But eventually, I like to think that a lot of times they come back to it because they realize that while certain things in their life might be going well, there is still something missing. And especially, particularly for those who are going through hardship, you even realize that much more while you need it. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Number one, you'll know when videos are posted. You'll know when I go live spontaneously. And number two, because I'm going to be giving away blessed gifts from the Holy Land from my mentor that is sent from over in the Holy Land to me for my subscribers only. And you'll know about them if you have subscribed to this channel. One that is new, yes, but it's growing. And we're going to do some pretty awesome stuff. Plus, aside from all that, I just want you with me because I love you and I care about you. I care about you, how you feel on this earth, and I also care about your eternal salvation. So make sure to subscribe. All right. You can tell, maybe, you can hear it in my voice. I've been traveling and moving around a lot. So I feel a little bit worn down, but I feel very excited about this message that you're going to give. I've never, ever given a kind of sermon on the book of Jonah, and I love it. So let's begin with today's message. But before we do, I'm going to click over to you again and say hi to some of you. By the way, Joel, Brian Tucker, Iraq Penn, I saw you guys last time. So glad that you are with us again. So again, we're in the book of Jonah. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, the basic message of this book centers on obedience. And in your faith walk, it is everything. It is everything. Jonah the prophet is a prime example of a person who had to endure all kinds of unpleasant circumstances and hardships because of his disobedience. God asked him to do something, and quite simply, he didn't want to do it. He wanted to do it a different way. He was worried. He wasn't filled to the brim with faith, so he ran in another direction. And in the end, after wasting time doing things his own way, he finally realized there was no way of getting out of what God wanted. So he eventually had to turn around and obey God anyway. And many of us, I believe, can relate to this. I certainly know that I can in my life. I knew I had this burning desire for a vocation, what was in me. And I thought that I could do it my way, on my timetable. And what I had pictured in my mind, that's what it was. That's what it was going to be. And boy, oh boy, sometimes are we wrong on that. Wanting to do things our own way, on our own timetable, even though our gut, our Holy Spirit, is trying to lead us in a different direction, a direction that may seem less desirable for our earthly eyes, but is ultimately the very best pathway for us to travel. So the story of Jonah reminds us that one, God stays with us even when we try to go our own way, even when we are stubborn and self-centered. We try to go our own way, but even when we do, God understands our human nature, and he doesn't leave us even when we stray, even when we rebel. He is still right there trying to get us to go back to him. Why? For our good life and for his eternal glory. Number two, in the end, God still requires obedience. So no matter what we do, no matter how we stray, he's still going to come back to center and require that obedience from us. He is patient, but we are wise. We are very wise to respond to his callings promptly. We don't want to waste any time. In this life, we really don't. We want to get to where we are called to go, where we're supposed to go as quickly as possible. And God knows when and where that is. As I like to say, we can try to run away, but in the end, we must obey. It'll always come back to that. So what happens if we don't? Simply put, we're going to be miserable. We might be happy for a little bit of time. We might be happy for even a season. We may even be happy for a few years. But as Jonah was, we will eventually be running around in circles, out of line with God's will for our lives. And when we're out of will with God's will for our lives, things are not going to run smoothly. Life is going to feel difficult. It's going to feel stressful. So I want this to sink in today. God knows what's best for us. Okay? God can see the big picture and how all those pieces should actually be fitting together in your life and in humanity for the world as a whole. When God calls us to do something, not only is he serious about it, he never calls us to do something that he doesn't care about. If he's calling you to do something, if he is putting something in your heart, he's serious about it. Not only is it for our benefit, which it is for our benefit too, but it's also for his glory, for his kingdom. And that's what God cares about, the big picture and the part that we will play in that big picture. So we may not want to do what is asked of us all the time. It may seem to our flesh, to our worldly eyes, a little too uncertain, too hard. We don't have all the answers. But no matter how much we kick and scream, God will not change his mind because why? He understands that big picture. So we are wise in this life to hear his voice. And when he calls us, to be quick to obey. We don't need to understand it all the time. We just have to be obedient and filled with faith. That is walking in faith. And there's a major takeaway from the book of Jonah that I want to highlight for you. I want to remind you that with God, it is never, ever too late. This world is going to tell you that you've made too many mistakes, that you've taken too many wrong turns, that it is too late. You're too old. This is washed up. That's washed up. Whatever it is, that's what the world will have you think. But that is not God's economy. So I want you to think about this. Have you ever wanted to do something, but over time you've had this thing in your heart, but over time you've started to convince yourself that it is too late, that because of how things look right now, that it's not possible? You're not alone. The world will tell us that. The world will tell us that it is too late, that we don't have time. And sadly, there was a time in my own life when I believed those sorts of lies, that I was on this timetable of the world, and that if it didn't happen in this tiny little window, that I lost it. And God was quick to remind me that it is never on the world's timetable. It is his. And he does not work on the world's or our own timetable. For him, it is never too late. His economy is different. It's spiritual, it's supernatural, and it's incredible. It doesn't have an expiration date. There's no such thing as washed up. It's too late. You've made too many mistakes, etc. That's not how God thinks. It's not his economy. If you're in God's will, if you've still got a dream in your heart and breath in your lungs, it is not too late. And this fact needs to make us all very excited today. Wherever you find yourself sitting listening to this video right now, that should make you very excited that it is never too late, that that's not God's economy. And if you have a still small voice in your mind telling you that you're washed up, you've made too many mistakes, it's too late, that is not from God. That is from the enemy. And we are to rebuke that immediately and not listen to that and get right back in alignment with God's will and smile and thank him and tell him that we are so excited to see where he is bringing us, because that attitude pushes us forward. It propels us into God's will. And that's what he applauds us for. He loves that because he wants us in his will and to trust him and to have faith that in his economy, it is never too late. So what happens then when we go the opposite direction from where God has been trying to direct us? It happens to us all at one point or another because we're human. What happened to Jonah? Well, Jonah chapter 1 tells us that when he boarded a ship and headed in his own direction, away from where God tried to direct him originally, a violent storm arose. This is exactly what happens in our lives today. Many of the storms we face in life are the result of our own stubbornness. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of times we maybe know what we should do, but we either get scared or we don't want to. It's kind of our own arrogance, quite frankly. It's kind of us wanting to go our own way to do things how we want to do them on our timetable, how we want to do them. And then later, when things don't go well, we try to blame our circumstances on other people or things. But the truth is that in many instances, we have been the driver of our own boat. We have been disobedient to a certain degree and not listened to the voice and guidance of God, the only one that knows exactly where we should go for our greater good and for his kingdom's glory. So the storm that came upon Jonah while he was in the boat running from God's direction frightened the other men in the boat also. So now his bad decisions, his disobedience is affecting those around him as well. And all of them were scared for their lives. Jonah knew that he had disobeyed God. He knew the storms they were now facing was his own doing, and he felt really guilty for putting others in danger. And because of that guilt, he told the men to throw him overboard. And they did just that. They didn't want that storm in their lives, so what did they do to Jonah? Threw him overboard. For the men in the boat, the storm stopped immediately, but for Jonah, the one that had the word from God, the one that was disobedient, he was now in the water, and the storm in the water persisted. And as you may have heard the story told, a great fish came and swallowed Jonah whole. From the fish's belly, that's so disgusting, and I'm sure not a pleasant place at all, I would imagine, Jonah cried out to God for deliverance and repented of his stubborn ways for not being obedient to God. So here we have Jonah caught up in a very bad predicament. And yet, after all his mistakes, who's he turning to? Who is the only one that can help him out of that situation? The Lord, God. There is no other person or place to turn to who can see the end from the beginning from the end. There is no one else that can rescue him out of the belly of the fish in the water. So he turned to God, the only one that can save him, the only one that in those days could save Jonah, and the only one that can save us today. What Jonah didn't do is say to himself, well, I've really blown it this time. Now it's too late. I've done too many mistakes. I'm a mess up. There's no turning back. I'll just stay here in the belly of this fish and feel sorry for myself. No, that is not what Jonah did, nor would that make God very happy, because God has a mission for him. And God is a God of hurry up, dust yourself off, let's go. Instead, Jonah turned to the Lord. He praised him. He expressed faith in his delivering power. And what did God do? He delivered him. The moral here is that God will never, ever leave or forsake us. It does not matter how far we stray. He is never going to leave us or forsake us. He will always continue to get us on the right path. It is never too late for God. He always hears our cry, and he always turns to us. Listen to me. This is for you. I don't know what you are going through today or what you've been through, nor do you know all that I have been through. Maybe one day you will. Maybe I'll preach about that on a stage at some point. But it is never too late for things to turn around for you, for me, for anyone. I have experienced it over and over in my life when I put my total faith and trust in God. God is a God of mercy and grace. And just like he heard Jonah's prayer and rescued him from the pit, rescued him first from the storm on the boat by the men throwing him overboard. It didn't look like he was rescuing him from that storm, but he was. But he sent him into another one, into the belly of the fish. And from there, he rescued Jonah, teaching him a very valuable lesson. And he will do the same for us. He will rescue us if we do our part, turning to him and obeying his direction. We'll never stray so far from God that he can't hear us. Just like our loving parents, or if you are a loving parent with your crying child, you will always hear them and you will always respond. And we'll be able to say, as Jonah did in Jonah 2:2, I called out of my trouble and distress to the Lord, and he answered me. And he answered me. God is a God of restoration and second chances, and he wants the best for us. In Jonah 3:1-2, after Jonah was spit out of the fish's belly, we see that the word of God came to Jonah a second time, and it was no different from the first set of instructions. So, in other words, Jonah was disobedient in the beginning. He wanted to do it his own way. So, he had to go through some trials and tribulations. And then, when the fish finally spit him out back on dry land, and God had his attention again, God came in and said the exact same thing. It was no different from the first set of instructions. In other words, Jonah just wasted some time by being disobedient, right? No matter how long we avoid God's instruction, it will be there for us when we stop running. The same instruction. When we realize that it's not easier to do it on our own way, our own timetable, because really we just end up wasting our time, God will be there waiting for us with the same instruction. And I have found out that being in God's will, not out of it, is what brings that peace, that joy, the stability, the fruit of our labor, no matter what it is we're doing. So we have to learn how to surrender our will, because walking in our own way is actually walking on a path of self-centeredness. And walking on a path of self-centeredness, thinking that we know what's best, is ultimately going to exhaust us in the end, keep us walking in circles, and we're never going to feel fulfilled. And it'll always return us to a place of unhappiness and discontentment. So think about your life today. Think about all you've done and where you are and where you want to go. Have you heard God telling you to do something, but you haven't wanted to? It was too hard. It was scary. Maybe you didn't trust him, or you didn't trust him all the way. And you maybe deep down feel like it's too late. You're not alone. I've been there too. Most people have at one turn or another. But that's where our spiritual training comes in. That's when we start to implement what we've learned, and we begin working with God little by little, day by day, trusting him to lead us, and us not trying to figure everything out on our own, in our own way. And guess what? You're actually doing it right now by watching videos like this one. Not only does that make me happy for you, but I know it makes God so happy, because he is so embedded in your life, whether you know it or not. God will never lead us any place that he can't keep us. If God is leading you towards something today, or maybe nudging you to deal with an unpleasant situation in your life, maybe even an unpleasant relationship, don't run from it. He promises to be with you at all times and to never leave or forsake you. Surrendering our will for God's will is, yes, frightening when we first start to practice it, simply because we don't know what the outcome will be, and we have to trust. And trusting for us, mere mortals, it's hard. That's called faith. It's spiritual. We walk by faith and not by sight. However, once we have surrendered and begin to experience God's faithfulness, provision, and the peace that passes all understanding, we quickly learn that we can indeed trust him, that his way for our lives is far better than any plan we could ever devise ourselves. Not knowing exactly what will happen in the future, but trusting God to take care of us and enjoying peace is far better than thinking we have it all figured out while living in fear, angst, and discontentment. And yes, those feelings will come. If we're out of the will that God has for our lives, those feelings will come. And like I said, it may not be for a season, it may not be for a year, it might not even be for 10 years, but it will come. You will come full circle, and you will be looking for more. So I'm going to wrap up today's message with this. For us to enjoy peace with God, we must become comfortable with not knowing what the future holds. There's no such thing as trust without unanswered questions. There's no such thing. I'm going to say it again. There is no such thing as trust without unanswered questions. If you feel God leading you somewhere today, if He's been talking to you about something, pressing it onto your heart, trust that it's never too late and just begin to take those baby steps forward in faith. Because after each step, trusting in Him, He is going to show you the next step. He is going to show you where to go. We don't have the access to the entire blueprint for our future and for our lives. And that's okay. All we need to know is the one who does have that blueprint and trust Him. And that's God. So 3 takeaways for today's message. Number 1, whatever God sends you to do it and do it without delay. And remember that you cannot successfully run from God or from His call over your life. And that call is for your benefit. And you play a part in this play. You play a part in His kingdom building. That's a big deal. It's a big deal to Him, and it should be a big deal to us. But it's also a win-win in our flesh because He rewards that obedience. And it's also never, ever too late. There's no such thing in God's economy. And when He loves you and He's chasing you and He's trying to get your attention, He wants you to be obedient so He can show you what He can do, so you can go out and tell everyone else what He has done for you and in your life. And that's a big deal. And that's pretty awesome. I say it every week. I'm so proud of you. That does it for our spiritual training today. Make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and thank you for joining me for Wednesday Wisdom. I'm so proud of all of you for taking this time to plant those seeds for your harvest, because day by day, I know, little by little, something is changing in you. It's unavoidable. It's no longer transactional. It's no longer a Sunday service. It's life transformational. It's transforming your life every day, all day. And before you know it, voila, you will see the world differently. And that's when things start to get really cool. Same time, same place, next week. Kör försiktigt, kompisar. Jag älskar er så jättemycket. And I am so, so proud of you. So vi hörs. We will see you next week. Like I said, same time, same place. I'm reading some of your messages. So much love for all of you. I'm going to see you next Wednesday, but I'm also going to be posting some live videos on this YouTube channel throughout the weekend. I'm going to try to post one both on Friday and on Saturday. You are free to join me on those days as well, but you don't have to. They're just going to be out there on the YouTube channel for you to watch whenever it's convenient for you. But if you are live, I'd love to see you. Again, that'll be Friday and Saturday. Not exactly what time. If you subscribe, by the way, you'll get a little notification that says when I'm live, and join me because I will talk directly to you. Love you guys so much. Have an awesome day. And by the way, can I say something? Do you see this little sheepskin behind me? I was laughing about it when I first went live with this thing behind me because it kind of just travels anywhere that I'm traveling. I can just throw up something behind me and go live with you. You would be surprised that something like this, so many people have said, hey, I like that thing. Will you keep it there when you do your videos? And now this thing has become this kind of blanket of comfort for me, knowing that for some of you, you like it for whatever reason. You just like it back there. And because you like it, I love it. I love it. So it's our comfort blanket. I love all of you. You älskar er. And I'm so proud of you. So I'll see you Friday and Saturday for another live video. And I want you guys to think about what we talked about today and implement it into your life, because your life will change. God wants a relationship with you. I know that firsthand. I had an encounter in 2008 that changed my entire life. So I will spend the rest of my life making sure that everybody hears it because he loves you that much. And if it takes someone like me to be a vessel, so what? I will do it humbly, graciously for him and for all of you. So that's why you mean so much to me because I know how much you mean to him. And now you're a part of my heart. So there's that. Love you guys. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. I've kept you way too long. I've kept you your entire lunch break from work and wherever this finds you. So I'll see you guys next time. Mwah. Love you. El Scarier. We'll see you next week.